Hi. When corporate executives, educators, and political leaders listen to the thoughts in the air, they hear something they do not like. They hear, has America peaked? Is the nation sustainable? Thoughts like those are troublesome. All Americans want the nation to grow, prosper, and win. We're all in this together. I believe that corporate America has an opportunity to reassure everyone that America is sustainable. Corporations are part of America. The successful companies need to tell the customers, investors, and the press that they are sustainable and resilient. This will help restore confidence in the American dream. I made the large-scale painting Sustainability and the large-scale painting Resiliency to help corporations share their sustainability message. Both are 24 by 5 feet. Microsoft just displayed Resiliency. NASA, Stanford University are next. If you'd like to utilize these paintings to help you share your message, please contact me, Michael Killen. And my email address is michael@killen.com. I'm going to get up now, and I'm going to share some insights into why I made the painting Resiliency. Now, some time ago, I decided to make a series of paintings that would help America. And I put them all under a category called Sustainable America, Restoring Confidence in the Dream. And my very first really large painting, Sustainability, I had been thinking about that topic, but the phone rang and it was NASA, and they asked me if I'd make a painting for their new building, Sustainability Base, to help bring attention to their work. That led me to make the big painting Sustainability. And, it's had a great impact, and I'm extremely pleased with it. And then as I was thinking, where do I go from sustainability? Well, my mind went back to, about 15 years ago before 9/11, and IBM's global banking chief asked me to write a paper on resiliency. And that was my first thoughts about resiliency. But then as I saw how things are developing in our world, cyber attacks, terrorism, climate change, and other developments, it became clear that if we're going to be sustainable, we have to prepare for hits, for perturbations. We have to prepare to be resilient. We have to prepare that when we're hit, and we will be hit, to be able to spring back quickly. And I think just about every corporation in the world today has some plan so that it can be resilient. And it's trying to tell its investors, its customers, that if something happens to their channel of distribution, their manufacturing, or some other development, they can spring back quickly. And I also thought about America. And de Tocqueville in 1830 said, if there's something about Americans, they are resilient. So he also inspired me to make this painting. And I started this painting with some cave art. And these are bulls that were painted 20,000 years ago in the Lascaux caves of France. I start with cave art because I like to present the long view, because we all need to be able to see sort of civilization over a long span of time, and we may be able to place ourselves in it and to think about what happened in the past. These went away. And, you know, there's always the possibility we can go away, and we don't want that to happen. And as we move forward here, I put "we the people" in here from the Constitution, and also this wheel, this mechanism, because right after the Constitution, at the same time, we had the Industrial Revolution. And I have the bell in here, the Liberty Bell, to again bring attention, make us think about this country. You know, this country has some problems, this country has a lot of opportunities, and we have to think about both of those. Now, this is cave art also. Again, I'm following the theme of bringing attention to the long view. And you might notice this starting, and this goes throughout the entire painting. And it sort of begins when America started, and we want to keep going on. This image is an infinity sign, and I tend to think the infinity sign is the best image to remind us of sustainability. Now, as we go forward, if we look at any national security list, on it somewhere is the expanding economic gap, the gap between the 0.1% and the rest of the people. And it is, that threat keeps getting wider. It becomes a greater threat to everyone. And it's not just an issue in the United States, it's an issue all around the world. We don't want 5 billion people starving and desperate to feed themselves and their children, because when that kind of situation occurs, the people who don't have anything, the disenfranchised, they look at us and other organizations, companies, people who have the Gucci, have the good life, the wealth. And even a middle-class person in the United States has a lot of wealth relative to other people in the world. And I wanted to remind everybody that if this economic gap keeps expanding, the disenfranchised will be reaching down and grabbing hold of the table. And, you know, they're hungry. I'm sure they're moral, but when you're hungry, you know what happens. And over here, this is something happened a while ago that shocked the nation, shocked the world, and it wasn't that long ago. And it happened in the Big Apple. And I don't want to simplify this, say this is the whole story, but people that were disenfranchised in this world looked down here, also were acceptable, some fanatical beliefs, and they became very angry, and they decided to strike the United States, still the leader in the world. And I thought it would be important to show my rendition of 9/11 and link it in with the economic gap. And so this particular image was inspired to sort of remind all of us that terrorism is with us, and it can strike at any time, and we all need to build so that when we're hit, we can respond and spring back quickly. Now, since I want to appeal to patriotism, I want to appeal to the better instincts of all American, I have this flag that starts here and then it continues here. And note how the sustainability, the infinity sign, continues to develop. And up here I have more art from, this was inspired by, again, the Lascaux caves in France. And over here, this is cave art from South Africa. Again, what I want us to do is keep thinking about, have people keep thinking about the long view of civilization. And here is some more art from the cave art. And what we have here is something that may be, it's inspired by possibly the greatest threat to the United States way of life, our liberty. This country was founded without an aristocracy. And yes, it's true in New England, some highly developed, educated people settled there, but they were not the rich. They were rich intellectually, but not financially. And this company started to grow with wealth distributed and the notion that everyone had their own vote. However, in the last 30 years, there has been this great concentration of wealth. It's shifted from the masses, all the people, to 0.1% of the nation. And it's been shown by sociologists that when people have tremendous amount of wealth, they influence policies, laws, etc. And they feel they have no bounds. It just happens, and they do things that they should not do, or things not good for the country. So this, you could say, is a bull. And it's a Wall Street bull. It symbolizes the 0.1%, or it symbolizes the concentration of wealth where one person can use $1 billion to influence possibly the presidential election, or to keep changing laws that benefit themselves and the wealthy. And somewhat dramatically, I put in blue here you and me. And this person is trying to go to the voting box and vote. But this concentration of wealth has the power, in this particular case, of dismembering the person's shoulder, taking liberty away. And so I make this painting, this scene, to encourage everyone to recognize that over the last 30 years, there's been a shift in this nation, this concentration of wealth, and it threatens the liberty of this nation. Now, we all know or agree that Washington is dysfunctional, and that is a threat to the sustainability of the nation. The two parties won't compromise. And so this is part of Washington, and down here, and this is the only path in, by the way, and you can't get into Washington unless you have money, which is a situation that has to change. And notice, here's part of the White House on pylons, and blue symbolizes water. I know the Potomac is right next to Washington, but as I made this, I was thinking about how to dramatically depict what's going to happen, and is happening right now. We put dams, roads, bridges, cities, parks, homes in places in this country with a consideration for where the rivers were flowing, where the ocean was, and temperatures, etc. Climate change is going to increasingly change where the rivers flow, where the oceans rise, and it's probably a multi-trillion-dollar threat to the nation, already as things go by. So I wanted this to be the Mississippi now flowing under Washington. Again, to make the point that the infrastructures we put in place, they're going to have to be, the storms, the water are going to disrupt them considerably, and we're going to have to spend trillions and trillions of dollars to rebuild the infrastructure. And with respect to resiliency, it's a case of a stitch in time saves nine. The country needs to, as soon as possible, start investing now so it doesn't have to pay so much later. And the corporations need to help the policymakers, the press, and others to appreciate that this climate change is really a threat to us. So I have the Mississippi River flowing down over here. And yes, this is the Freedom Arch, but the Mississippi doesn't run sort of behind it, or down here. It runs alongside of it. And so I have the Mississippi coming in here to, again, make the point that the infrastructure we have today is not where the water and climate is going to change us. And then this is, of course, what this symbolizes. We're going to get hit, and we're going to get hit hard. Now, this is a thermometer, which I don't think I need to tell anyone, and the temperature in many places is going to continue to rise and rise and rise and rise, and the mercury is going to boil over. And you and I may not feel it, but if you care about your grandchildren, they're the ones that are going to have to live with having to rebuild so much infrastructure. They're the ones that are going to have to live in a world where the climate is much, much more harsh than we have to. And then this is sort of the beginning of the end of the story over here. I tend to feel, and I'm sure a lot of people do, with the concentration of wealth and some other developments, sort of the pulling the floor out of the middle class, the loss of their wealth over the last 30 years, and some of the laws that have been made and some that haven't, liberty has sort of fallen down a bit. And what I believe you and I need to do, and all the corporations need to do, we need to get educated, and we need to rise up and do our best to pick liberty up again, and we need to encourage the corporations and the government, the policy makers, to bring liberty forward and have her start addressing the great challenges that this nation faces and that we need to address to assure the resiliency and sustainability of the nation. So over here, the first perturbation that I have her addressing is climate change, because that's the one that's really going to cost us a lot. And it could cost us so much that by the time we realize we have to act, we may be too weak to act. And if we become too weak to act, or as that process occurs, we lose our liberty. We lose our liberty because, well, when the waters are flowing, flooding our houses, you don't do what you want to do in life. You have to do what the emergency requires. So this image here is to encourage us all to realize we have to rise up, do things to support liberty again in this country, and start by, we have to do all things at once really, capping the temperature, slowing the growth of climate change, and we have to do this quickly and try to encourage our elected officials. And the only way you really can encourage them, if you're a corporation, it's how you give your money. If we're voters, we vote, but we need to have people in Washington that will get the nation's business done. And then we might not have such significant changes, impacts on our weather. And liberty, that's us. We have to help Washington adjust the rules and regulations to help redistribute the wealth of this nation so that we're a much healthier economy. Actually, this economy cannot grow if only 0.1% has all the wealth and the rest of the people are struggling. Right now, the situation in the United States is the very wealthy are getting wealthier, mostly by being able to take wealth away from the middle class. At the end of the day, that's not growth. So we need to encourage our elected officials to face this situation and enact laws and rules that help redistribute wealth back to all the people. So, and then our government is very active already in trying to check terrorism. And so I'm going to start to summarize. So this infinity sign is, in my opinion, the best symbol for representing sustainability. Much of what we see here are what I call perturbations, and there's some system theory that says a situation, a structure, people, a country can handle about 3 major perturbations, or 2 I should say, and it can adjust and morph and handle it. But with 3, what happens to the system, it morphs into something unexpected. I have presented at least 3 perturbations, and anyone watching this film can conjure up in their minds at least 4 or 5 perturbations that threaten this nation. And the scary thing is, if we're not resilient, if we don't handle these things effectively, this country can morph into something that you and I, nobody can predict what it will be. So, I'm making these paintings available to large corporations that are interested in sending a message out to the stockholders, to the suppliers, investors, that they are sustainable, they are resilient, and that we all need to not only think about them as sustainable corporations and resilient corporations, but as part of America in an effort to restore confidence in the American dream. So, Microsoft was the first corporation to display this painting at a 150-person event. And I really prefer to have someone else say this, but it raised the level of discussion at that event. The next organization that is going to display it is at a NASA facility on May 23rd, and it's a project having to do with NASA and Sustainable Silicon Valley. At that one-day event, solutions will be proposed for planet-wide solutions to climate change. And then the next event that it's scheduled for, and there'll probably be another event or two before this, Stanford University is presenting its annual energy conference, Energy Conference 2013, and there'll be Congress people, senators, and the Navy, the Army, many former secretaries of state, defense will be at that event. And Stanford has decided to have this painting on display. Last year they had my Sustainability on it, and if you're interested, the program is being produced by the Stanford University Precourt Center on Energy Efficiency, headed by Jim Sweeney. So I'm Michael Killen. My next painting is probably going to be the American character, and other paintings that I have made that I make available to corporations include Liberty, Fuse to Coal and Oil, The Beginning After the End of Civilization, Evolution of Consciousness, and then I've even made a series of paintings which are also part of the American developments on social media. Thank you.